welcome to the Blood Safe channel. Wherever you are in the world, I welcome you. Sitting in your car or at work, checking me out on your 3G or your 4G device, I welcome you. Or maybe you are where some people call the best seat in the house, sitting in front of your PC, logged on to the Blood Safe channel on YouTube. I welcome you in. Wherever in the world you are, welcome you. The Illuminati. It's their month. It's the spring. They love the spring. They use the spring to conjure up their little antics. For example, this morning I would have to put my snowshoes on to go outside. It's the 9th of May. And it's winter. You gotta love them. The Illuminati. And they're gods. They have lots of gods. Lots of gods. Isis, Ishtar, Gaia, Zeus, Hercules, Baal, Saturn, the sun god Ra, Hermes, Persephone, the list goes on. In the Illuminati's pantheon of gods, there is one called the goddess Hecate. She's the goddess of magic, witchcraft, the night, the moon, ghosts, necromancy, which is the conjuring of demons, evil spirits, to ask our future or influence the course of events. Hecate was also the only child of the Titans of Asteria and Perseus. So confusing. You see, they have to cover their gods with other gods, to accommodate the question. It's just like lying and covering that lie and covering that lie. Take the sun god Ra, for instance. They would like to make us believe that we are revolving around the sun, S-U-N, when in fact we are revolving around the sun, S-O-N. Now the crossroads are very important because, first, the cross is really an X, marking the spot to be focused on. I believe that the X was actually the mark of Cain. Symbolically, the crossroads can be used as a metaphor for the afterlife. The crossroads is referred to as a turning point with an unpredictable outcome. I'm in a crossroads in my life. In ancient literature, some scripts have references to the other dimensional worlds with their own different endings. For example, 4 different endings would be a golden age, an apocalypse, a bad event, or nothing changed. That varies with each world. Now, the Crossroads was a name of a 2002 movie, as a matter of fact, written by Tamara Davis. In it starred Britney Spears, of all people, and in this flick, she plays this teenager called Lucy. Lucy's really Lucifer. It's the female version of Lucifer. There's a legend of Robert Johnson, too, affiliated with the Crossroads. The Crossroads, you see, can give immense power to conjure, to do root work. In conjuring practices, you got to go to a crossroads a certain amount of times, either at midnight or just before dawn. And as legend has it, you'll meet a black man, whom some call the devil, who will give you the desired skills. This myth is retold in blues songs like Sold It to the Devil by Black Spider. The story of Robert Johnson is probably the most famous soul-selling tune all time at the Crossroads. The song is called the Crossroads Blues. It's a description of a black man standing at the crossroads and trying to flag a ride or hitch a ride. The fear coming from the singer's apprehension of finding himself, a young black man in the 1920s in the deep south of the United States, alone after dark, and at the mercy of passing motorists. Others say that Robert Johnson sang the song because of a deal he made with Legba, in which Robert Johnson exchanges his soul for his extraordinary guitar skills that he had, and that seemed to also appear suddenly. Legba is the intermediary between voodoo and humanity. Voodoo is tied up in this. He stands at a spiritual crossroads and gives or denies permission to speak to the spirits. And it's believed that he speaks all languages and is always the first spirit to be evoked in a ritual ceremony because we need his permission for any communication with the spirit world. And he opens and closes the door. Legba is a trickster, the deity, as well, a god to the entrance of the crossroads. He is a part of the belief system of Black Dutch Guineas, Brazil, and Haiti, where voodoo is the national religion. Trinidad, too. The idea of selling your soul for musical skills goes long way back before the American South, a long way before. The classical musician Paganini is said to have sold his soul for musical prowess, and even goes back to medieval troubadours. Yes, the selling of your soul for guitar power, a story that's been intricately intertwined with rock and roll and metal artists throughout all time. A pact with the devil. You've heard it often in music, didn't you? Well, it's true. But if you ask me, it's for but a short time on earth because your soul does not belong to you in the first place. It belongs to Yahovah. He bought you at a price. But on earth, if you choose to sell your soul, get prepared to pay the bill. Pact with the devil is put into songs. That has been covered by quite a few acts. Robert Johnson, Led Zeppelin. I would like to take a moment to thank my commentators, a small group of loyal listeners, although very small, very intelligent, but also very funny. Very funny. Calvin E. writes, "Good job, bro. You've missed your calling. I think you should have been in radio or do movie trailers or something to that effect." Well, thanks, Calvin. Grace S. replies, "No way, Calvin. We couldn't afford membership for Blood's fan club. Plus all the jackets, t-shirts, and keychains and things." Very funny. Funny. Well, I find the comments are fantastic. I get my power from the comment section. Now, back to the song Crossroads. The song Crossroads was written by a man who lived right around the turn of the 1900s, Robert Johnson. And as the song goes, he made a pact with the devil. Robert Johnson had been playing down in Yazoo City, over at Beulah, trying to get back up to Helena. A ride left him out on the road. He was hitchhiking next to the levee, walking up the highway, guitar in his hand, propped up on his shoulder, on an October cool night. It was a full moon, filling up the whole dark sky. Robert Johnson started thinking about the Sunhouse musician, preaching to him, saying, "Put that guitar down, boy. You driving people nuts." Robert Johnson, always needing a woman and some whiskey. Big trees all around, dark and lonesome road. A crazed dog howling and moaning in the ditch alongside the road sent electrifying chills, it said, up and down Robert Johnson's spine. Coming up at a crossroads, just south of Rosedale, Robert Johnson feels bad and lonely and knows some people up the highway in Goodison where he can get a drink, whiskey, and maybe some loving from a woman. A man sitting on the side of the road on a log at the crossroads says, "You're late, Robert Johnson." Johnson drops to his knees and says, "Maybe not, Debo man." The man stands up tall, bare-chested and black as the forever closed eyes of Robert Johnson, stillborn baby, and walks out into the middle of the crossroads where Robert Johnson is kneeling and says, "Stand up, Robert Johnson. You want to throw away that guitar in the ditch with that hairless dog and go on back to Robbinsville and play the harp with Willie Brown and his sideman's son? Because you just another guitar player like all the rest? Or do you want to play that guitar like nobody played it before? A sound nobody heard before? Do you want to be the king of the Delta blues and have all the whiskey and women you want?" Robert Johnson replied, "That's a lot of whiskey and women, Debo man." "I know you, Robert Johnson," said the man. Robert Johnson feels the light of the moon peering down his head and the back of his neck as the moon seems to grow bigger and bigger and brighter, and feels the heat of the moon. Feels like the sun in the noonday. And the howling and the moaning of that hairless dog in the ditch, penetrating his soul, going up through his feet and into the tips of his fingers, through his legs, his arms, and setting in that empty place between his breastbone, causing him to shake and shudder like a man with a palsy. Robert Johnson says to the man, "Is that doggone mad?" The man on the side of the road says, "That hound belongs to me. He ain't laughing. He got the blues. I got his soul in my hand." The dog lets out a long, soulful moan at that time, howling and yelps and barks, seizing Robert Johnson like a grand mal, causing his strings on his guitar to vibrate. And the hum, with the beautiful and soulful possessing notes, possessing Robert Johnson, taking him over, spinning him around, losing himself inside of himself. Robert Johnson looks over to the ditch and sees the eyes of the dog reflecting the bright moonlight, or more likely so, it seems, they were glowing on their own. Deep, violent, penetrating glow. Robert Johnson feels and knows that he's staring into the eyes of a hellhound as his body shudders from head to toe. Dog ain't for sale, Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson couldn't answer. You can't have the dog, but the sound can be yours. That sound of the Delta Blues. Robert Johnson said, I gotta have that sound, Devil Man. That sound is mine. Where do I sign? Man said, you ain't got a pencil? Robert Johnson, your word is good enough. All you gotta do is keep walking north. But you better be prepared. There are consequences. Prepare for what, Devil Man? You know where you are, Robert Johnson? You're standing in the middle of the crossroads at midnight, and that full moon is right above your head. You take one more step and you'll be in Rosedale. And you'll take that road to the east and you'll get back over to Highway 61. Or you can turn right back around and go to Beulah, sit up on the levee and play the harp with Willie Brown. You take one more step in the direction you're heading, you'll be in Rosedale. And you're going to have blues like you've never known. But my left hand will be forever wrapped around your soul. Your music will possess all who hear it. That's what you better be prepared for. But your soul will belong to me, though. This ain't any crossroads. I put this X here for a reason. And I've been waiting on you, Robert Johnson. And as the myth goes, Robert rolled his head around, his eyes up in the sockets, staring up the bright light of the moon, and looks at the man straight in the eyes and says, Step back, Devil Man. I'ma go to Rosedale, and I am the blues. The man steps to the side and says, Go on, Robert Johnson. Go on home to Rosedale. You're the king of the Delta Blues now. And when you get into town, you get yourself a plate of tamales. Because you're going to be needing something on your stomach where you're headed. This was a view from the Blood Saints.